Welcome to this video tutorial of Brownie, which stands for Behavioral Research of Groups using Web and NeuroIS experiments. Today I'm going to try and give you a brief introduction into how to set up Brownie on your system and how to conduct your own experiment and how to program your own experiment using Brownie. So we first start with the source code downloading. So you would have obtained your access to Bitbucket, which is usually available on publicly. So what you would do is basically go to the source and you see different branches that you can work with. And the default branch would be experiment tool. So this contains all the tutorials and all the videos that I'm currently recording as well. So you go to the source and here you can see the various projects that we use for the development of Brownie. So you can check out this using git fetch, using this code on your local client, or you can also check out in SourceTree. SourceTree is the client that I personally use, and then I use it to manage all the versions that I have of Brownie. My SourceTree looks something like this, and this contains the paths to my latest version of the code. Okay. So now let's move on. Let's assume you have checked in the code and you have to basically import these projects on to your Eclipse. So I'm assuming that you've downloaded your latest version of Eclipse, which is Eclipse Juno in this case, and then you can basically do a file import and go existing projects into workspace, then browse to the directory that is of interest to you. In this case, it's Brownie latest, and then just select all the projects. Right now, these are all disabled because all the projects are already imported into my Eclipse, but you can basically download, copy all the projects into your workspace when it is blank initially, right? And now comes the interesting part, which is basically all the projects in Brownie. So Brownie consists of 6 main projects. We start with the 2 main ones, like the ones at the bottom of the layer, which is the JPA and the common projects. And then the 2 middle tier, so-called middle tier projects would be the client and the server projects. And the sensor project would also qualify for a middle tier project. And then finally, the one that you will be using the most as an experimenter is the implementation project. So what happens is, I'll explain each of these projects in brief, and for details you can go to the documentation that's on the website, and you can also go to the documentation in the article which has been written describing this particular this tool. Yeah. So what you actually see in the JPA layer is your Java Persistence API. So this is nothing but the schema of Brownie, which consists of 15 tables mapped to database objects, entity objects, and this is performed using JPA. So that's what you see in the entity layer, all the 15 tables which have their own independent entity object. And on top of that, you have the data access object layer. So from layers above the entity layer, you're going to use the data access object layer as a wrapper to pass messages to the database to perform all the CRUD operations onto the database layer. And then you're going to use the DAO to communicate with your database. Again, this is a lot of detail. This is only out of interest. The next one is the EXP common layer. So this consists of all the communication rules in between the client and the server. For example, there is the message receiver, the sender. These are the handles that are used. Then you also have the message delivery thread. And then you have the communication manager, which facilitates communication between the client and the server. Then all the exceptions are defined in the common project. Alright, enough about this. Next we move on to the server project, which consists of the server logic, like the communication from the server side, and the GUI for the server. Analogously, we also have the client communication rules and the GUI for the client. In addition, if you're interested in conducting a sensor experiment, it's basically implemented. We have two implemented examples right now for the WireFlux devices, and these can be used to facilitate recording of sensor data. Alright, so now let's move on to the most relevant project as an experimenter. That's the implementation project. So here you use the run class in the impel package as the starting point of your application, and all the other projects or all the other packages that you see within this project are basically implemented experiments that we have. So today I'm going to explain the ultimatum game to you, and there are other instances, for example the browser experiment and the Gauge meter experiment. So the Gauge meter experiment is an example of integrating live biofeedback in your experiments. And the browser experiment is an example of integrating browser objects into Brownie. Right? So this can help you conduct experiments with websites, hopefully in the future. So now let's start with the ultimatum game. As you see, there is a client and a server project, and I'm going to explain the code to you in detail shortly.